everyone, it's Alyce, and I'm here today to discuss 60 authors who are 5-star authors, but I've only read one book from them. I need to try and think of a snappier title for this video before I post it. But basically, these 60 authors are ones that I've only read one book from, and I gave that book 5 stars. So they are 5-star authors in my head. I just need to read more from them in the future to see whether they are actually 5-star authors or whether they just wrote a 5-star book. So I'm going to split this down into a few sections. I'm going to do non-fiction authors first, because I don't really have a lot to say about those. Then I'm going to do graphic novelists, because I've actually got 2 of those on this list. I didn't think I'd really rated that many graphic novels that highly, but apparently I have. And then I'm going to do adult authors, and then like YA and middle grade all in together towards the end. So without further ado, let me run through this list of 60, and let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these authors' other books and if you would recommend them, or if you have read the same book as me, what you rated it, to see whether we agree on it. Let's go. So starting off with non-fiction, I have Roxane Gay's Bad Feminist. This is one of my favourite feminist essay collections of all time. I don't know why I haven't read any other Roxane Gay, because I was pretty convinced I'd read Hunger, and I apparently haven't, according to Goodreads. That's something I'm going to need to work on. This is just such a great selection of stories because it really does explore intersectional feminism. So Roxane Gay is black and she is a larger woman, plus-sized woman. So she discusses the way that feminism works in conjunction with those things like feminism and racism, and feminism and kind of society's expectations of beauty. And it's a really fascinating look at this experience and the way that it impacts not only her, but the way that you can relate to it, even if you're from a very different background. I've got Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists on this list. That was a TED Talk that Chimamanda performed, and I read it as a novella, I guess. It's not non-fiction. No, it is non-fiction. It's not fiction, but it's only about 50 pages. It's just like a single bound-up essay, and I really related to this one as well. I'm interested in reading more of Chimamanda's work. I'm just not sure where to start because she's written some more non-fiction, she's written some fiction, and I've heard some controversial things about her since then. So I'm not completely sure when or if I will ever read any more of her writing, but I am interested in it in theory. I've also got Kate Bollock on this list, who wrote Spinster. Again, feminist non-fiction. This is actually Kate Bollock's only book though, so I won't be able to read another book of hers unless she writes another one. She's contributed essays to different collections, but I'm not counting those on this list. And I loved Spinster. It's a look at being, like, choosing to be single and choosing not to have children when you're of an older age. And the way that society can kind of judge you for that. I read it before I had children. I read it at a time when I didn't think I could have children. So I related to it very intensely. I don't know whether I would enjoy it as much now through the lens of motherhood, because obviously I've now chosen a different path for myself. But if Kate Bollock writes any other books, I'll definitely be picking them up. I have Jenny Lawson with Furiously Happy. This is a non-fiction book about mental health. Because Jenny Lawson has, I think it's depression and anxiety, but she might have more going on. Either borderline personality disorder or bipolar. I'm not completely sure. It's been like a year since I read this book, over a year. But Jenny Lawson writes other non-fiction books about mental health as well. I actually own her first book, and I'm interested in reading her third one because that only came out this summer. But this is one of those books when it makes you want to simultaneously cry and laugh, because it's a very hard look at mental health. But it's simultaneously hilarious because of the way that she writes and the way that she shares her anecdotes. So I definitely recommend Jenny Lawson. I've got Greg Jenner's A Million Years in a Day. This is all about evolution. I found it fascinating because it taught me a lot. I would be interested in reading more of Greg Jenner's writing because it was informative and educational, but in a digestible manner. I just haven't picked any more of them up yet. I've got Carrie Brownstein's Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl. This is again Carrie Brownstein's only book, and it's a memoir about her time in Sleater Kinney. Never listened to the band, had never heard of her before. The title interested me when I was working at the library, and I read it and devoured it, and just the look at women in the music industry and the way that it can be so tough, especially for a grunge band, which was a highly male-dominated genre, obviously. It was a fascinating look at the music industry, and I would be interested in reading more of her work if she wrote more. I've got Emma Gannon with Control-Alt-Delete, again, non-fiction, and about one woman's experience with the internet. Very, very funny. Again, be interested in reading more of Emma Gannon's writing. She actually wrote a novel called Olive last year, and I've been intending to pick it up, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So this is currently the only book of hers that I've read, but that will change 100% because I loved this book. Got Jessica Bennett's Feminist Fight Club. Again, only book. It's feminism. It was great. 5 stars. Would read more. Will Derbyshire with This Modern Love. I can't really remember all that much about This Modern Love. I know that it impacted me deeply at the time, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, I loved that book. But I honestly can't remember much about it. It's all about the way that love is now. So in the age of technology, in the age of like online dating, and the way that you can keep love alive, essentially. It's Will Derbyshire's only book, so I won't be reading any more of his. But I've got a feeling it's part of like an online project, so I might need to relook into this because I remember really enjoying it. I've got Jodie Archer's The Bestseller Code. This was an investigation into what makes bestsellers, whether they have similar things in common based off of like authors' backgrounds, authors' demographics, the characters, the plot points that they use, the way that the stories are structured. Fascinating. If you're interested in books, which I'm assuming you are because you're on a BookTube video and that's all I do here, pick this up because you will be fascinated. It makes it sound like there is like an algorithm, the perfect algorithm to make a bestseller. But when you really think about how difficult that is to like combine all of those elements together, it was just fascinating. I've got Sara Pascoe's Animal. I'm not quite sure why I picked this up because I'm not a huge fan of Sara Pascoe's comedy, but on the page it worked really, really well. She does have another book, would be interested in reading it. 5 stars. I've got Hannah Witton's Doing It. Again, not sure why I picked this up. I hadn't seen any of Hannah Witton's videos at the time. I think it was just because part of the Sunday YA group were reading it and they were all really excited because it's a very empowering and very feminist look at sex education, and especially aimed at like young women and experiencing female pleasure and the female orgasm and educating yourself on the fact that sex isn't a wholly male experience. Like, it doesn't just have to be centered around the male pleasure, even if that is what the media kind of make it seem. And like, honestly, there are revolutionary elements in this book, and if you are interested in those kind of things, if you've got teenage daughters and you'd like to like educate them a bit more about their own body, this is a very personable and a very fun way of doing that. I also think Hannah Witton's got another book out now, so I might need to pick that up because I did like this one more than I thought I was going to, and I would read it again. I've got Helen Russell with Leap Year. I don't remember anything about this one. I've got a feeling her husband gets a new job and they have to like move to a country, and they're taking on all these like chances in this new country for a whole year. And it was cool, but it also, looking back at it, it just makes me feel really inadequate. So I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much now. Back then when I was a sprightly young thing and I had all of the hopes and dreams of the world, I was like, wow, that'd be so awesome. Just go abroad for a year, take all these opportunities. Now I'm like, well, shit. But I might try one of her other ones. I think she did the Year of Living Danishly as well, which is all about hygge and living with like cozy comforts and more like introverted experiences rather than extroverted experiences. Might be making that up, but I'm interested in it if that was her. I've got Rennie Edo-Lodge with Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. If you are from the UK and you haven't read this book, it is required reading, so you have to go and pick it up as soon as you can. It talks about the way that Britons often pretend like racism isn't a problem in this country, and it really is, and the way that people are often kind of demonised for saying that race is a problem in this country. And I think it's just a really educational book, and I would recommend this to anybody. So I would definitely like to read more of Rennie Edo-Lodge's work in the future. I've got Fern Cotton's Happy. This is like a mental health manifesto, all about being happy. I think she's also got Calm and Peace now. I haven't picked those up. I don't really know what made me pick this one up. It just had a pretty pastel cover and I was like, why the hell not? I like Fern Cotton. But I don't really remember too much about it. I would be interested in reading more of hers though. And that's actually the last of my non-fictions. So there were more than I thought there were going to be, and I talked about them more than I thought I was going to, but non-fiction is done now. Let's move on to graphic novels, of which we've got Adrian Tamine, who wrote Summer Blonde. This was a collection of 4, I think, little short stories, because he normally releases single issues, but it's like 4 to 8 in the series, I think. I loved these. My review is really helpful because it basically just says I read this at exactly the right time, and I can't remember why I loved it so much, but I can remember getting like really emotionally invested in these characters and in this story, and I would be interested in reading more of that in the future. I also have Tomiko Meraki, who wrote This One Summer. I know they've also written Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and I've heard a lot of people talking about that one. I didn't realise it was the same author until I was prepping this video, and I was already interested in Laura Dean, and I've already read This One Summer. I loved it. So it goes to reason that I will also love that one. Let's hope. Now on to adult novelists that I have read one book from, rated it 5 stars, and I would like to read more from. And the first of those will be One Day by David Nichols. Please excuse the condition of this copy. I had a big old sticker on the front, and when I took it off, it like ripped all of the, you can kind of still see, it ripped all of the fluffy cover off. So I just artsed and cut the guy's face out. Probably going to end up donating this soon. But One Day is about a girl and a boy. They have like one night together on graduation night. And then they basically meet up this one day every single year from then on. And it's their relationship across 20 years. And it's heartbreaking, and I loved it. And it was a 5-star, and I cried and cried and cried. And if I read it again, I would cry and cry and cry, which is why I'm not trusting myself to read any more of David Nichols' writing, because I don't want to cry and cry and cry. But I do own all of his books up to, I think, Sweet Sorrow, so I will read them eventually. Like, I've got Starter for 10, I've got The Undergraduate, I've got Us, and I'm interested in all of them. I just don't want to get my heart stomped on. I then have Me, Myself and Them by Dan Moody. Looking at Goodreads, Dan Moody actually had 2 books out within about 3 months of each other, one of which was Me, Myself and Them. But he hasn't had any more since. So I would be interested in reading that one. I'm not sure I would rate this 5 stars anymore, because Sean absolutely loved this book when we read it together, and I think his enthusiasm for it did impact my rating. But this is about a guy who has like imaginary friends because he has mental health issues. And it's an exploration of mental health and the way that you might not know your own head, even if you think that you do, which is fascinating. I also have John Fowles, who wrote The Collector. I've read this book more times than I can count. I have completely demolished it because I read this during 6th form and just read it over and over and over again. I read it with Sean a couple of years back. Yeah, just before Ezra was born, actually. And I loved it still. And I want to read more of John Fowles' writing, but I'm just not sure it's going to live up to this, because I don't know if it's the perfect storm of the writing style and the story, or the writing style and the time that I read it, or the story and the time that I read it. But I'll probably read The French Lieutenant's Wife eventually, just to see if I do like more of his other work. I'm just a bit nervous. I also have Bernard O'Keefe with The Final Round. Read this earlier in the summer, absolutely loved it. It's a murder mystery about a guy who gets killed after a final round, mystery round full of like secrets and lies gets added to this charity quiz. Loved it. Want more from this series, want more from this author. I've got a feeling this is his only book out at the moment. I might be wrong. I am wrong. There's 2 more in the front there. But I want to read more of this because it was great. I also have Andy Weir with Project Hail Mary. How I haven't read The Martian, even though I've owned it for like 10 years, and I read this like literally as soon as it came out and absolutely fell in love with it, I don't know. But Project Hail Mary is probably my favourite book I've read this year so far. Well on course to being my top book of 2021, especially considering I've basically stopped reading, so I don't think I'm going to read anything else in 2021. It's glorious, pick it up, read it. Love it forever. Make it your wife. Make it so happy for the rest of its life, because it deserves it. It's so good. And I'm going to read Artemis, and I'm going to read The Martian, and I'm going to hopefully love them both. But even if I don't, this has cemented Andy Weir as a favourite author for me, even if I hate his other books. Oh my gosh, Sean has like crumpled up some of the pages. I'm going to cry. It's fine. begins to murder. This is why I'm the one in charge of the books. Other adult novelists I'd like to mention today. I'm not sure whether this counts because I think one of his books is adult and the one that I read was not adult, but Pete Wentz for a Fallout Boy. I read The Boy with a Thorn in His Side. It could be a middle grade, it could be a YA, it could be an adult. It's one of those like amorphous ones I think would appeal to a huge target audience. And I loved it. I obviously loved it because I gave it 5 stars. And I've also got his other book, Grey. Just haven't read it yet. My mum has it actually, but I'm going to nick it from her and read it. I love Pete Wentz. Did that impact my rating? I have no idea, probably. But I love Pete Wentz, so that's fine. I've also got KARIN SLAUGHTer with Blindsighted. It's embarrassing that I've read just one KARIN SLAUGHTer book because I own like 25. I own all of her Grant County series. I own one of her other series in full. I own a load of her like adult thriller standalones. I loved Blindsighted, and then I don't know why I didn't carry on with the rest of the series, but I just kept buying her books every time I saw them in charity shops and every time they were on like half price in WH Smith's. So hopefully I'll read these eventually and love them, and if I don't love them, I've made a massive mistake. I've got Justin Evans with The White Devil. I am so surprised to see this on this list because I thought I gave The White Devil 3 stars. Who knows? But it's basically like Byron's ghost is haunting the Cambridge school. And this guy's like, being haunted by Byron's ghost. And it's really trippy and really gothic and really dark. And I didn't think I liked it because I really struggled to get through it. I think I started it 3 times before I actually got through it. But I gave it 5 stars, apparently. So maybe I was just trying to be highbrow and interesting. Would I read more of Justin Evans' work? Probably not, actually. He might be the only author on this list that I wouldn't read more from. But it would depend on what else he'd written about. Because if it was something similar to this, because of how much I struggled with it, I don't think I would bother. If it was very different, I might give it a go. I've got Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who wrote The Yellow Wallpaper. I actually thought The Yellow Wallpaper was her only released work. It's a short story about a woman who is experiencing postnatal psychosis or postnatal depression. I'm not quite sure which. But it's about the way that men demean women for having their experiences, and they kind of treat them like they're crazy when they're not, and when they're just experiencing reasonable things. She doesn't like being locked in a room. Oh, that makes her crazy. Shucks. But apparently she also wrote a book called Herland, and I've never heard of it, and I want to read it now that I know it exists. But The Yellow Wallpaper, one of my favourite short stories of all time. 5 stars every time I've read it, and I've read it at least 4 times because of uni and sixth form. Also on this list of adult 5-star authors that I've only read one book from would be Abigail Tartland, who wrote Golden Boy. It's about a boy who is intersex, but he doesn't actually know because his parents made the decision to have him have surgery when he was very young. So he's always had that kind of disconnect and has never been able to work out why. Fascinating. I cried and cried and I loved it, and I would love to read more of Abigail Tartland's writing. I have Crash and Burn by Lisa Gardner. I don't know how this is the first and only Lisa Gardner book that I've read because I've been slowly gathering them up from free book boxes and from charity shops over the years. All of her books sound so interesting, and Crash and Burn was a 5-star. I was absolutely blown away by it. And it's the third one in a series, so I don't know why that was where I decided to start and simultaneously stop with Lisa Gardner's work. But hoping to get more from her in the future and actually read them. Preferably in order. I have Lily Parody with Volition. This is a difficult one because apparently Volition was accused of being plagiarised and Lily Parody basically dropped off the face of the planet. So she's not really writing any more books. She does have a previous book already out. And I can see the cover in my head. It's like a girl stood there in like purple. I want to say it's Ignite, but I might be making that up. But I loved this one. It's about like second chance romance and this woman who like leaves to go and live the high life, and she meets this husband who should be perfect and he's not perfect, and then she ends up like going back to her childhood sweetheart. I cried again. I don't cry a lot of books, but most of these ones did make me cry, which is I think the reason that they got 5 stars. But I want to read Ignite, if it's called Ignite. It's probably not called Ignite, but I want to read her first book and then just feel sad forever because the internet bullied her out of writing. And also, like, it's the romance genre. It's so repetitive. There's so many tropes that get used over and over and over again. Like, can you really say that somebody's plagiarized it just because it's like, she, like, leaves and then comes back to her childhood sweetheart? Like, I've seen that happen in so many TV shows. Are they all plagiarized? Who knows? But I just don't like it. I don't like people. I have Emma Cline with The Girls. I recently found out that Emma Cline's actually released a short story collection called Daddy. So I borrowed that from the library, hoping to read that very soon because I loved The Girls. I have this thing for cult books, and I always have to call them bad cult books because they are not good. There's one or two that have impressed me, and the rest have all absolutely disappointed me, and they've been terrible. But The Girls was one of the ones that did impress me, and I read it in one sitting. I read it in a bus journey on the way back from my uni, and I literally just sat there and read it cover to cover and couldn't put it down. And I want to do that with more of her work. I have Shell Cook with Teeth, a very vicious vampire book. One of the first review copies I ever got sent, Shell actually reached out to me and asked if I wanted to review it, and I was like, hell yeah, vampires, evil vampires, loving that shit. I do have Meet, the sequel. I'm also meant to review that eventually, but I just keep putting it off because I'm a bad person. And Shell, if for any reason you're watching this video, I'm so sorry. But Teeth, amazing. So good. If you like vicious vampires, hit it up. I've got Sarah Bohm with Spill, Simmer, Falter, Wither. This is narrated by a dog, but it's an adult book, and it's about the state of humanity and the way that humans treat animals and the way that humans treat people who aren't traditionally acting. So people who don't fit into society's norms, the way that they kind of get outcasted, and it's, again, heartbreaking. Cried, would read more of her work. And that's all for adult authors. So let's move on to the YA authors. Why not? Because there are a ton of these. So I'll put YA and then I'll do middle grade because otherwise it's just going to become a bit of a clusterfuck. So let's do it. To start off with, I have Nikki Singer, who wrote The Innocent Story. I read this when I was in either year 5 or year 6. Loved it. Wanted to read it again and had never been able to find a copy. And then I actually found this signed copy for £1 in a charity shop a couple months ago, and it was like the day after I'd filmed a video talking about how much I wanted to reread this, which was spooky. It's still the only book of Nikki Singer's that I've read, but I do own, I think it's called Featherboy, I found in the free bookshop a couple months after, so I will be reading more of her writing and I'm excited about it, but this one is, again, massive tearjerker. I've got John Marsden with Tomorrow When the War Began. It's embarrassing that John Marsden is on this list because I read Tomorrow When the War Began, ordered the entire series the night that I finished it. They all arrived like 2 days later. I'm like, I'm definitely going to never read these. Because it's now, oh god, that was 2014. It's 7 years later and I still haven't picked up the second book. I'm going to have to reread the first one. I might not like it as much. I might end up just donating them. But they do have gorgeous covers, so I'm not even mad that I ordered them. But this is a dystopian end of the world apocalyptic thing, like war scenario that kicks off in Australia. Recommended it by my friend and he loved all of them and I trust his recommendations enough that I would start the series and never read any more of them. Sorry, AJ. I've got Stephen Chbosky on this list with The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This should not be surprising because Stephen Chbosky for like 20 years only had one book, but 2 years ago Stephen Chbosky released Imaginary Friend and I got an advanced copy of it on my NetGalley and I was so pumped to read it and I was totally there for it, and then everybody was like, well, it's really boring and slow, it rivals Stephen King for slowness and it's not that great, and I got scared and didn't read it. So hopefully eventually I will read that. I don't know how I'll feel, but I love The Perks of Being a Wallflower, so at least that will never be taken away from me. I've got Lucy Christopher on this list, who wrote Stolen. Again, read Stolen when I was back in secondary school. Loved it. Would be interested in reading The Killing Wood. I just don't know why I haven't picked it up yet. But Stolen is a book about Stockholm Syndrome and somebody gets kidnapped in Australia. So you can tell I like Australian settings as well. But it's gorgeous. And again, sad. I have Rebecca James, who wrote Sweet Damage. Again, I think this is set in Australia, so it's a bit spooky. That like all the Australian YA that I've ever read is like all lumped together. But I've got Beautiful Malice. I just haven't read it yet. I loved Sweet Damage. It was heartwarming. It's about a girl who's been through some trauma, and this guy like falls in love with her, and then he has to like help her work through her issues and things. I really liked it. It was kind of gothic, like it had like some spooky vibes as well, which was fun because it was a contemporary with a twist. But I would happily read more of Rebecca James' writing. I've got Rick Yancey with The Fifth Wave. I never read The Infinite Sea. I never read The Last Star. I loved The Fifth Wave. I don't know if I would like it if I reread it, and I need to reread it to read the other two. So Rick Yancey might be falling off of this list soon. By soon, I mean in like 20 years when I eventually reread it. I've got Bonnie Sue Hitchcock with The Smell of Other People's Houses. Amazing book. It has a character in it called Alyce with a Y, and I am Alyce with a Y, so relating. I had never met another book that had Alyce with a Y in it, so I was over the moon. But this is like a selection of viewpoints that they seem like they're separate stories to begin with, but then they like interweave, and it's beautifully written. Loved it. And also the American cover is just the most stunning thing I've ever seen. Absolutely stunning. I have Eric Lindstrom on this list with Not If I See You First. This is about a legally blind girl who learns to run. She loved running. She lost her sight. She learns to run again. And it's great. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. It had a lot of tropes in it, like with the relationship and stuff, and I wasn't sure I was going to love it, but I did. And I would happily read more of Eric Lindstrom's writing as well. It's taking me so much longer than I thought it was going to, so if you're still here, you deserve a cookie. I have K.R. Conway on this list, who wrote Cruel Summer. This is a novella set in the world of like a different story that K.R. Conway wrote called Undertow. I have a feeling at the time I thought that Cruel Summer was a standalone, read it, realised it was like a connected story, like a companion novel. And I would be interested in reading the rest of the Undertow series. I just haven't got around to it yet. I have Claire Furness on this list. This is How Not to Disappear, and I loved it, and it made me cry. And it's about a girl who gets pregnant by her best friend, I think. But he doesn't want anything to do with the baby, so she has to decide what she is doing by herself, like whether she'll have an abortion, whether she will raise this child as her own. It's so sad, and I loved it. And I want to read The Year of the Rat, but I've been putting it off because I wanted to wait until Claire Furness had more books out. So if I read The Year of the Rat, I still had something to look forward to, and she still only has 2 books out. So this is still her most recent release, and I read this just after it came out, which was 2016. Oh my god, I read this 5 years ago and she still hasn't read anything else. What is going on? Why would this happen? Oh. I have Kathleen Glasgow on this list. Kathleen Glasgow wrote Girl in Pieces. I have Kathleen Glasgow's most recent release. I don't remember what it's called. It's blue. I have it on my NetGalley. So I will be reading more of Kathleen Glasgow's work soon. But How to Make Friends with the Dark only came out last year. The recent release came out this month, I think. And Girl in Pieces came out 2016. So it took Kathleen Glasgow a few years to write another book. But again, one that I read in one sitting on a bus journey. Sean picked my book for me to take. And I'd been putting this one off because I thought it was going to be quite triggering. And I wasn't sure how I was feeling mentally or emotionally at that point. But I actually found it really uplifting. But look into trigger warnings for this one first if you are sensitive to those kinds of things. I have Crystal Sutherland, who wrote Our Chemical Hearts. All I can really describe Our Chemical Hearts is like a John Green novel. If you love John Green, read Crystal Sutherland. You won't regret it. It's being adapted into an Amazon Prime show, I think. I'll probably watch it. She says, having no interest in watching TV ever. I would like to watch it because I liked this book. And I can literally remember sitting in the Wetherspoons before the Don Broco concert just reading this one and ignoring my mother because I wanted to finish it. So that's how much I liked this one. But House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland came out earlier this year. And she's also got a semi-definitive list of worst nightmares. I'd like to read both of those. But particularly House of Hollow because it sounds like it's kind of body horror, a bit trippy. Perfect for this type of season. So, might get hold of that soon. I have Lisa Heathfield, who wrote Paper Butterflies. Again, this one made me cry. This is about a girl called June, and she is abused by her stepmother, and it's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous, and it's so sad. And I only read this one because it was on the way book price shortlist, but I loved it. It was so sad, but I loved it. I want to read Seed because it's about a cult. It might end up being one of my bad cult books, who knows, but I want to read all of Lisa Heathfield's writing, and I don't know why I'm putting off. I don't know if it's just because of how much this one put me through the ringer, but it's stunning. Just ridiculously sad. I have Gloria Chow, who wrote American Panda, on this list. Again, I'm interested in all of Gloria Chow's books. She's got Our Endless Waves. I can see the cover in my head. I can see the cover of all of these in my head. They're just not coming out. And she's got a new one out about, like, boyfriends. I don't remember. I'll ask Sean if he can put the covers on the screen so you'll know what the hell I'm going on about. But American Panda reminds me a lot of Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. Loved Emergency Contact. Loved American Panda. It was great. I have Ligia de Penaflor with This Is... All of This Is True. I don't really remember much about it. It's not... Yes, it is multiple perspective, but it's also like multiple formats. So there's like transcripts of interviews, there's actual narrative, there's like loads of shit going on with this book. I found it really interesting, very propulsive, but I don't think I've ever heard this author mentioned as having another book. Should have probably looked that up. But I would be interested in reading more of their writing. I just don't know if they have more writing. And this was meant to be adapted into a film. I'm pretty sure it was meant to be like a huge deal, and it flopped. I might be making that up, but something about this is twigging things in my head, I think. I have Justin A. Reynolds with Opposite of Always. I don't know why I haven't read his second book yet, because I loved Opposite of Always. Again, it made me cry. Groundhog Day, a guy keeps meeting his girlfriend, because at the end of the time, she dies. So Kate keeps dying, and he keeps being thrown back to the moment he meets her, and he's got to try and work out how to save her, because he's like, right, okay, well, I just won't meet her, but then he'll be, like, living his life, and then he'll suddenly, like, reset, so that's when she's died, even though she's not in his timeline. It's fascinating, and I loved it, and it was so sad, and it was everything I wanted in a book, and if this gets adapted to a TV thing, I will be watching it instantly, because I loved it. I loved it. I have Laura Stephen on this list. Laura Stephen also wrote The Love Hypothesis and the sequel to The Exact Opposite of OK, which was called... A Girl Called Shameless. I haven't read that one either yet. 5 stars, related to it so intensely. Nice guys who say they're nice guys are not nice guys. That's basically the only way that I can sum this up. If a guy says to you, nice guys finish last, or like, I'm a nice guy, I'm always being shafted, they are a dickhead. They are the biggest player, and they are playing you like a fiddle, my friend. So ignore boys that are trash, and ignore boys that are taking advantage of you and manipulating your emotions by making you feel bad for them, because they're fucking trash. And this book is so relatable, and this book does so much for me, because I was in a very similar situation to Izzy when I was younger, and I just completely fell for it hook, line and sinker, because I was like, oh my god, but he's so hot. No, doesn't matter if they're hot, fuck them. Don't fuck them. That's the advice I'm trying to give you. Kick them out of your life and do better. Do better for yourself, okay? Do better. Do better. I have Ashley Elston with 10 Blind Dates. I want to read the sequel to this one because it only came out a couple months ago. But this is like a big family thing. The girl gets dumped by her boyfriend, and then all of her family organise her a blind date. It's super cute. I could totally see where it was going from the beginning. It was very predictable, but I loved it, and I want to read it again because it's Christmas and it's a Christmassy story, and I like Christmas, and it's cute. It's cute. I have Emma Smith Barton with The Million Pieces of Nina Gill. This is a book about grief and loss and mental health, and I loved it. And it's still the only book that Emma Smith Barton has written, and she needs to write more immediately. immediately. Right now. Please. Please. I have Slay by Brittany Morris. I don't know why I haven't read The Cost of Knowing yet. I loved Slay. Brittany Morris is a great author. I will read more of her work. Eventually. I have Tom Pollock with White Rabbit, Red Wolf. Read this for the Way Book Prize shortlist. I wanted to read Heartstopper. That's not going to be what I'm trying to say because that's the Alyce Oseman graphic novel. Again, I will ask Sean to put the cover on the screen. I wanted to read his other book that's red with like black stuff. And I thought it would be on the Way Book Prize shortlist, so I was like, I'll wait and read it then, and it wasn't on the shortlist, and I kind of forgot it existed until today. So, White Rabbit, Red Wolf is trippy AF. I literally can't say any more than that. Read it if you're interested in it, or don't read it, and don't be tripped out. I have 3 YA authors to go, and then I'll move on to my middle grade, so hopefully I won't be keeping you much longer. First up, Joan He, who wrote The Ones We're Meant to Find. Loved it. Trippy, eco city thing, sisters. It's, again, trippy. Hard to explain. I read it earlier in the summer, loved it instantly. Love it deeply. Can't find it, which is concerning, because it's a fancy signed copy. But it'll be somewhere in this house of many books. But Joan He also wrote Descent of the Crane, which I have had since it was released, and I haven't read yet, because I suck. So I'll be reading that soon. I have Kaitlyn Callender, who wrote Felix Ever After. Read this in the summer, loved it, instant 5 stars. It's a trans love story, and it is stunning. And I loved it. And Kaitlyn Callender's written quite a few other books. I think they've written some middle grades and some YA. But I definitely have another one of their YA novels on my, not my NetGalley, my Kindle. Queen of the Conquered, I think it's called. So I will read that, and then hopefully more of Kaitlyn Callender's work. And last but not least for YA authors, I have Bethany Rutter with Mount My Heart. I didn't think I would love this. I thought it was going to be preachy and boring, and I wasn't interested in it at all. And then it was on the Way Book Prize shortlist, and I was like, oh, I don't want to read it. And then it was actually my personal winner of the shortlist, which is why I read the YA shortlist each year, because the Way Book Prize just kind of pushes me outside of my comfort zone. And I'm glad it did in this respect. I have No Big Deal on my NetGalley. I will read it eventually. I want Bethany Rutter to write more, please. Please. These authors just need to be like churning out the books for me. It's the only thing that's going to keep me happy. So let's move on to the middle grade authors, of which there are not many. We've got John Clayton and Tim Lawler, who are an author duo, so I'm just counting this as one author, with The Stig Plays a Dangerous Game. I don't remember giving this 5 stars. I think it might have been Sean's excitement that rubbed off on me, because I have never seen an episode of Top Gear. I'm not interested in Top Gear. I'm not a huge fan of the Stig, but it's fun. It's fun, but it's also fucking annoying. Like, there's lots of text speak that I just don't think kids really use nowadays. So it felt really dated, even when it was like, because I got this sent as an advanced copy. It felt dated before it was even released. And I don't know why I gave it 5 stars, but I do have the second and the third books both on my Kindle, because they were only on 99p daily deal, and I was like, why the hell not? So I might 100% carry on with this series, especially because they're very quick reads. But I don't know what I was thinking, giving it 5 stars. It was just after Sophia was born. Can we blame baby brain? We can totally blame baby brain. It was baby brain. I don't... No. Oh, so bad. I also have Hamza Arshad on this list with Little Bad Man and the Radioactive Samosa. In fact, the next 3 books, Zainab Mian's Operation Kind, Planet Omar book, and Derek Lander's Apocalypse Kings are all ones that were out on World Book Day this year. So for World Book Day, popular authors do short stories, and they're 99p each, and you can buy them all, and you can read them all, and I did a whole reading vlog where Sean and I spent 2 days reading 16 books, and There were picture books and there were kind of YA books. I don't know if the Derek Landy one counts as middle grade or YA because it always seems to be in either section in the library. So please correct me if you've read them and you know. But these three, I gave 5 stars to each of them because they were very fun. They had good morals. They had things that just really excited me. Apocalypse Kings made me buy all of the Derek Landy books on Kindle because I wanted to read more and I still haven't yet. Operation Badman reminds me a lot of Captain Underpants, and I loved Captain Underpants when I was little, so that was really nostalgic for me. And the Planet Omar book was just like the cutest shit. It was just so cute. I loved it. And so those are the 3 middle grade authors that I need to read more from. But also it's handy because Apocalypse Kings is part of the Skullduggery Pleasant series. Little Badman has more books in the series, and so does Planet Omar, so I could just read like the first book in each of these series and see whether I still want to carry on with them or whether I just like them because they were distilled down into short story format, and also all the World Book Day excitement because there was so much World Book Day excitement. But if you want to see that vlog and stuff, I can link it, you can check it out. It's really old now, but why not? I'll probably do the same thing next February, March, I can't remember when World Book Day normally is. I'll probably be doing the same thing next year. If we're still here. We probably will be. We don't know how to quit. But anyway, those are 60 authors that I've read one book from, given 5 stars to, and I need to read more from. I hope that you enjoyed this video because it was about 30 minutes longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be me like, sup, swag, here's 60 books and I will read more from these people. It was not that at all, and I'm so sorry that Sean has to edit this because it is a chonker. If you like this video, give it a like. If you'd like to subscribe, then please do. We normally post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, but we've been having some horrendous technical difficulties with our exporting software. So if we're aiming to get a video up on Tuesday, it will probably be here on Wednesday. If we're aiming to get a video on Thursday, pop back on Friday. And if you're trying to find a video on Saturday, try Sunday instead. Hopefully we will get it under control, but I managed to break Sean's Surface by dropping it because I'm a massive dickhead. So we are running things on my very slow, very old, very clunky laptop, and I just feel as though the technical difficulties are going to get worse from here on out. Thank you for watching, thank you for bearing with us, and thank you as always for your support. Bye! And I also have Mariko Tamaki, who wrote One Summer Day. This one summer. I'll get there.